a code red for humanity. Curb emissions and dramatically reduce consumption or face a world that is fundamentally different.
When Kermit the Frog sang, "It's not easy being green," I want you to know that he was wrong. He was wrong.
There is no planet B. There is no planet blah. Blah, 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 blah.
It is unequivocal that human activities are responsible for climate change.
If unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
Zero carbon.
East off.
Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista, Series 3, The Sky's the Limit. I'm Ian Collins and this is the UK's #1 green-based podcast. On last week's episode, we witnessed a monumental moment when Dale revealed he was legging it from the world of energy and going to dip his toe into the world of politics, a metaphoric change of clothes, a new career, a new job. So has he changed his mind? He's fast becoming the Mr. Ben of the environment world. Dale Vince, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Ian. I actually don't know what Mr. Ben was famous for, so I'm not getting that bit.
Well, there's Tony Benn, of course, so it could be that. But then, of course, there's Mr. Ben, the cartoon guy that used to change his clothes in the changing room.
Oh, was that it?
He was like a spaceman one week and a caveman the next.
Okay.
Just sort of mixed it up a bit, Mr. Ben.
I like it.
But you are sticking with the journey, the trajectory.
So far, I mean, it's been a week and...
Should be in the House of Lords by now. What's happened?
I don't know what to say, really. There's a lot to be done here in the execution of mic drop, and then there's a lot to think about, really, like the best way to get involved in politics. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. I guess I'm thinking about it a bit more now because I'm at the pointy end of it,
Yeah, that's right. The business end of the decision. Well, I mean, here's a good one to start. This is the sort of thing I can see you on the green benches getting angry about. The energy strategy, a plan for 8 new nuclear reactors to boost production. What's going on?
Oh, yeah. What kind of mad world do we live in when the Prime Minister stands up and says this plan will help bring bills down and help give us energy security? And he's talking about a plan to build 8 new nuclear reactors. I mean, firstly, it's the most expensive form of electricity ever devised. It doesn't bring bills down, it puts them up. And secondly, it'll take 20 years from now to get the first one running. So that isn't really responding to the emergency.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, putting aside it's surely the issue at the moment, putting aside costs, what we need at the moment is energy, right?
Speed. We need speed, don't we?
We need the speed to deliver that energy. And I think everybody knows, my 8-year-old knows this, everybody knows this. Yeah. And anything that's got the term or finishes with the sentence "in 20 years' time" is clearly surplus to requirements, you might have thought.
That's incredible, isn't it? And the government said of their policy, almost honestly, that it wouldn't affect energy prices for 4 or 5 years. It's like, no shit, it won't. I mean, it just won't affect energy prices positively.
Yeah,
it won't.
Well, a question related to this came from Sam on Twitter. It says, and I share this completely. We've touched on it so many times. How the hell did fracking get back on the agenda?
Yeah, the Tory party are clearly split, aren't they? There's a fairly vociferous anti-wind group, and there's a fairly vociferous pro-fracking fossil fuel group. They might even be the same thing. They'll definitely overlap on the old Venn diagram. And they've been making a big fuss to bring fracking back. And what the story is about is that the government commissioned a geological-based kind of safety survey into fracking 2 days before this energy policy. I don't think fracking is back on. I think this study was to placate the pro-frackers. Kwasi Kwarteng himself had said that fracking would take years to get up on its feet, that it'll only ever produce 5% of our gas anyway. I mean, Jesus. The OGA, Oil and Gas Authority, say if it was running now, it'd be run out by 2030. So it's a short-term fix. But we could do 5% of Britain's gas with green gas mills really easily.
Of course, we did this debate, didn't we, Dale, on the radio with James Gray, who's possibly even your local MP.
No, he's not, actually, but...
He's nearby, right?
Yeah, he's cut from the same cloth, I think.
Yeah. Well, he had a very sort of different take on the whole thing. He almost had his own his own energy policy, really. What's this man talking about?
I think he had his own reality because he said onshore wind was expensive. and when it's the cheapest form of energy we've got, he said that, we didn't have enough of it. And when I said, we could power the country 20 times over renewables, he's like, oh, but then we'd have to cover the countryside. And so then I say, well, actually, we only need 1% of the land. That's an exaggeration. And then he's off somewhere else, He's anti-wind energy. He just doesn't know why.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's what we said last week. The word fracking's big and hard, isn't it? Fracking, it's all of that. And
nuclear.
Wind. Yeah, nuclear, frack, nuclear, it's got all of that. It's manly energy. And then, of course, you've got windmills, which are nice, delicate sort of things that flutter around in the countryside. It just sounds too nice to be true for some of these guys.
Yeah, but I read that stat this morning that fracking could only produce 5% of our gas. And I thought, what are we doing? Because with green gas mills, we could do that really easily, really quickly. And it won't run out in 2030. It just won't run out.
That's right. Yes, there you go. Curious times we're living. We can tackle climate change if big oil gets out the way, say the IPCC. Well, tell us something we didn't know, Dale.
That's right. That's in that category. Reading deeper into the article is very interesting. There was a lot of work from social scientists in the report about the extent to which fossil companies are standing in the way of policy, and it didn't make the exec summary, which has to be signed off by all countries of the world. And Saudi Arabia in particular objected, wanted to water down the language about giving up fossil fuels and, of course, the impact of fossil fuels on policy. But ironically, perhaps, it turns out that the IPCC report itself is authored by a number of fossil fuel people that work for big fossil fuel companies. They have lead roles in the assembly of this report, which is an incredible conflict of interest.
I mean, did they not have to fill out a declaration?
They did apparently. And one of these social scientists in the article just laughed at that and said they can fill out a form, but that doesn't take away their conflict.
Well, yeah. I mean, they filled out the form, but you'd think that the person that then checks the form, I assume there's a form checker over there at the IPCC, might have gone, oh, right, okay, it's a bit iffy this because you're the chairman of Shell. Or something. Yeah, that might have.
You'd think, wouldn't you? But surely it's a bit like MPs declaring interests. As long as they declare them, nobody cares. Kind of.
Yeah.
Or Rishi Sunak saying his wife followed the letter of the law when she avoided tax in Britain. That makes it okay then.
Yeah, but we need to lay off her, really, Del. She's almost skinned. She's down to her last 2 billion apparently. So
yeah, I know.
A rough old time.
I know.
Katie says, if you decide to go into politics, how can we help you? Look, you've got a campaign team mobilising already, Dale.
Oh, that's fab. And I've had a lot of comments like that on social media, people bumping into me in the street and offering to do the same. It's pretty fantastic, actually. And it's kind of encouraged me. I'm weighing this up in terms of standing. There's a positive side, stand for Labour, win the seat, maybe help get a Labour government, Green Labour government in Parliament. There's a positive side to that. And then the negative side is politics, like that little head-to-head with James Gray, the being shouted over and I'm sure it gets worse than that and stuff.
But you can be the person doing the shouting over then, can't you? People will expect it of you as an MP.
Yeah, expect me to be loud and boorish.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of strange, isn't it? I was listening to Rees Mogg talking about some stuff this week, and he was sort of all over the place, really. But because they have this, when they get into cabinet, they have this collective responsibility thing. So even if you don't specifically agree with the policy, you have to agree with it publicly and then sell it publicly, which always seems a really strange place to be in terms of your own passion, your own ideology, that you would literally go out on national media and talk up a policy that you think is horseshit.
Yeah, or go out and defend Johnson for Partygate and say it never happened, or defend Johnson for something else and say that never happened.
Yeah, storm in a teacup, isn't it? Storm in a teacup.
Time to move on.
Yeah. Why? Why is it time to move on? Well, because there's been some time in between time. That in itself is not a definition of moving on or a reason for moving on.
No, it's because they don't like the story.
Yeah. Here's a question from Dan on Twitter. We've had a few people ask this. Where's the hovercraft, Dale?
Yeah, I asked it as well, actually, because it was.
Have you lost your hovercraft?
Yeah, it was due to be flying at the end of March. I think was the last thing I said. Last thing I was told as well. I got an update 2 days ago from the guys there. Had a 2-week delay. send me some pictures and some technical stuff. I mean, it's coming together really well. It won't be very long. It won't be very long at all.
I have seen a picture of this, haven't I? There's been images.
Yeah,
out there,
on social media, we'll put some pictures
Yeah,
up for
yeah.
sure. I'll get down there in a couple of weeks, hopefully, and we'll shoot a little bit of video and have a spin around the car park.
What happens to the hovercraft? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, it's a job to know. It's got some serious interest for harvesting of seagrass seeds. When I thought of building one, I didn't really have a kind of serious output for it other than to give it to Sea Shepherd for a bit of coastal work. But seagrass seed harvesting looks like it needs something like that. We could have a bit of fun and do a cross-channel record run in it. And then we've got an innovation, like an invention to add to the hovercraft, something that's not been done before, which will extend its range and all kinds of stuff. And we'll do that as phase 2.
So phase 2. And then the idea is that you end up with a completely eco-friendly hovercraft that could be the technology which could be applied to bigger things.
Yeah, and to hovercraft. I mean, there's a few companies around the world making them.
Sure.
We'll be able to share that tech approach and try to electrify hovercraft. That'd be all right.
Well, I saw this headline, and you spotted it in the week as well. The US and Europe are behind most ecological damage. Again, that does perhaps come under that bracket of tell us something we didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole developed world, isn't it, really, in effect? I mean, I don't know why the EU got left out of that, but that's interesting.
I mean, in terms of what people have to change, we have this narrative about oil and net zero, and I hear, would it be fair to say, Dale, I hear a lot of people talk about it rather than implement it? Whether it's in the States, whether it's over here, wherever, Australia, of course, the ones we always Australia. That's just become a sitcom, hasn't it, frankly?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
a
really,
standing joke, that is, isn't it?
It is. And so everyone's talking about it.
Yes,
and it's a bit like the electric car story. I mean, we were talking about this on the radio in the week. I'm getting a sense that's kind of gone a bit off the radar at the moment.
Electric cars or net zero?
Yeah, electric cars.
They were the biggest selling car again.
True.
Last quarter.
I mean, they are still. They're still obviously doing more than they had previously done.
Yeah.
But there is just maybe the cost of living crisis thing has got in the way of that a bit.
It's not going to help. I saw queues at petrol stations again this morning, though.
Wow.
And I think that's Just Oil. Yeah, Just Stop Oil, sorry. Just Oil are the other guys.
That's right, yeah. They're the ones who work at the IPCC, yes.
I think their campaign is starting to bite. I was on the train yesterday and heard somebody talking about shortages at their local garage. And then on the motorway, there were signs saying no HGV fuel. And as I got off at Stroud, there was like queues going into the garage. And that's the kind of thing that pushes people towards electric,
Yeah.
But look, net zero, the question and the answer is, of course. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody's really doing it, especially and including our government. We've got lots of big talk and aims and targets and stuff like that. But we don't have the policies to hit them.
Here's a question from Mark on Facebook. Have you changed your mind, Dale, about selling ecotricity?
No, I haven't.
Has there not been a moment when you've woken up in the middle of the night and gone, no, what am I doing? I have to stay here.
No, I mean, I look at it sometimes in the last week and think, it's actually, what am I going to do? Where's my office going to be? All kinds of practical things that I don't have an answer to. But since putting the story out last week and sharing with my team here, just felt like a really a big move and a kind of weight lifted, to be upfront and open about it, because we'd started work on it a few weeks ago and I didn't want to keep it secret for very long at all. But it was just great to get out there and talk about it. Team here have been fantastic. They can see the future for ecotricity with a new owner and our 2,000 megawatt pipeline, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's a bit of a dive into the unknown, but I kind of like that kind of thing.
Good. Microplastics in lungs of people found for the first time. That's a bit disturbing.
Yeah, they're turning up everywhere, aren't they? Microplastics, bottom of the ocean, the Arctic, all kinds of organs of humans, animals. I mean, It's incredible. I was thinking, lately geologists have come up with the concept of the Anthropocene to name this era that we live in that's marked by human activity. And just then I was thinking, really, it's the Plasticine, isn't it?
That's great. That is great. Yeah, that's there. Copyright that name right there now. Yeah. Final question from Ed on Twitter. When is the Forest Green Rovers promotion party?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ed. I've got a feeling
7 points ahead of Exeter. So I mean, there's no doubts here, are there?
Well, they're second, and so that's about the championship race to win the league. But we're 12 points clear of the playoff pack.
That's true,
and with a point's worth of goal difference. And
you've got Port Vale down there, Northampton Town.
That's right, and they've only got 6 games in which to be 13 points better than us. Yeah. That ain't going to happen. So the way I see it, we're promoted, and at the party, which will be on the last home game of the season, I think. Then it's a question of, are we also champions or not?
I know you don't like to get too territorial, but Bristol Rovers will be hoping to, improve their position.
Yeah, they're in the mix.
They're in the mix, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you'd have to be interesting. 2 local teams in this respect.
Oh, well, Cheltenham are in League One already, and Swindon might make the mix. So, I mean, us, Bristol and Cheltenham.
It's very close, isn't it? That's if you look at the top 10 places in League 2.
For football in this region, if Swindon, Cheltenham, Bristol and Forest Green were all in League One, that'd be amazing. We'd have some set of derbies.
Listen, that's it for this episode, Dale. We'll speak in a week.
Fabulous. Thanks, Ian.
Don't forget, of course, you can follow this podcast from your podcast provider so that you get each new episode automatically. Leave a review there too. And if you want to get in touch, zeroCarbonista@ecotricity.co.uk. And do follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince.
Zero Carbon
East of.